Hollywood is full of actors who pretend to be tough, but what happens when the scars are real, the blood is real, and the danger never leaves once the cameras stop rolling? These men didn't just play heroes, they lived through war, prison, addiction, broken bones, and near-death experiences. Their toughness wasn't a role, it was survival. From Marines turned movie stars to brawlers who carried bar fight bruises straight onto set, these are the actors who proved toughness on and off the screen. This is the countdown of the 20 toughest actors in Hollywood history. Keep watching, because number 1 will make today's stars look fragile by comparison.
I'll never understand is you know better than a highwayman. Only you use your loans and legal papers and the trust that people have in you to steal what they got. And we Harveys always fight out in the open.
Jack, your brother's here. He's right behind you.
I saw him come in.
Number 20, Lee Marvin.
Come there, Cleet, but I wasn't born there. How? My folks have me in a shack up in Lerno, ma'am. They moved to Silver the summer I was first able.
Shot in the back by a Japanese sniper, left bleeding on the battlefield, then dragged himself through Hollywood with the scars of real war still carved into him. Before he was a star, Marvin was a Marine Scout sniper in the Pacific. He survived the slaughter at Saipan, took bullets to the foot and backside, and earned a Purple Heart the hard way. He watched his best friend die beside him and admitted that war never left him whole. Marvin didn't just act tough, he was tough. On set, he once knocked out a stuntman for mocking veterans. He carried fresh bruises from bar fights straight into scenes, never glamorizing violence because he'd already lived it. His tombstone doesn't mention Hollywood at all. It reads, Lee Marvin, PFC, U.S. Marine Corps, World War II. For him, the movies were just the aftershock. And if you think that's intense, wait until you see number 19. Number 19, Charles Bronson.
I admire your notion of their odds, mister.
Harry tells me you faced bigger odds in the Travis County War.
Well, they paid me $600 for that one.
He flew bombing missions over Japan, dug coal with his bare hands as a child, and brought an intensity to Hollywood so real that even Steve McQueen called him the scariest man he ever met. Bronson's childhood was brutal, one of 15 children raised in poverty and working the mines before he was even a teenager. In World War II, he flew as a tail gunner on bombing runs, staring death in the face with every mission. Pain didn't change him. Bronson was silent, brooding, and lived like a monk. He avoided Hollywood parties, kept to himself, and only smiled if the role demanded it. His rage wasn't acted, it came from deep inside. Once, during a fight scene, he punched so hard he broke 2 knuckles on his own hand and still finished the take. Bronson never pretended to be tough. He was the definition of it. And if you think Bronson was intimidating, wait until you meet number 18. Number 18, James Coburn. Trained under Bruce Lee, shattered ribs during fight scenes, and lived with crippling pain that would have broken lesser men. James Coburn was elegance wrapped in steel. Before Hollywood, Coburn was already tough. A devoted student of Bruce Lee, he mastered Jeet Kune, Do, and full-contact sparring. His strikes were so sharp that during one shoot, he cracked a co-star's rib, and the director kept the cameras rolling. But Coburn's real battle wasn't with other men. It was with his own body. Crippled by rheumatoid arthritis, he refused painkillers. Instead, he used martial arts, meditation, and raw willpower to push through daily agony. Off-screen, he raced cars, rode motorcycles without helmets, and once walked away from a wreck that nearly killed him. On-screen, his presence was pure menace, calm, precise, and lethal. Bruce Lee himself called Coburn one of his most disciplined students, and that discipline made him one of Hollywood's most quietly dangerous men. Think that's resilience? Wait until you see number 17. Number 17, Robert Mitchum.
Professional, you get into character and stay in it until you're needed. I want you here at all times, not just for your scenes.
It's 120 degrees outside.
Aren't you man enough to take it?
He spent time on a chain gang, served jail time for marijuana, and once headbutted a reporter just for asking the wrong question. Robert Mitchum didn't act dangerous, he was dangerous. Before fame, Mitchum was a drifter. He rode boxcars during the Depression, took brutal jobs in mining camps, and brawled for cash when he needed it. Trouble followed him everywhere, and he never backed down from it. In 1948, he was arrested for drug possession and spent weeks behind bars. Instead of destroying his career, it made him even more popular. The bad boy Hollywood couldn't tame. On set, Mitchum barely rehearsed lines, sometimes drinking before takes. He could turn cold and violent in an instant. Once, he punched a photographer mid-interview, then calmly continued talking like nothing had happened. He described acting as just showing up and not falling down. But in truth, Mitchum lived harder than most of the killers and criminals he portrayed. And the next man on this list, he carried the same fire but aimed it at the Hollywood system itself. Keep watching for number 16. Number 16, Kirk Douglas. He's
favorite. But every time I try to play it safe, I come up empty. So now I just sit down at that drawing board and do what I want to do. And I hope that what I like, somebody else will like. Maybe this isn't a great house, I don't know. Maybe somebody will think it's an oddball.
Survived a helicopter crash, punched studio heads in the face, and stood up to the Hollywood blacklist when everyone else stayed silent. Born to poor Russian Jewish immigrants, Douglas grew up fighting for every scrap of food he could get. He carried that hunger into World War II, serving in the Navy where he was injured in a depth charge explosion. When fame found him, he became just as explosive off-screen. Known for his volcanic temper, Douglas once threatened to throw a director off a set for changing a scene. In 1991, he walked away from a helicopter crash that killed 2 others and was back filming months later. Even after a devastating stroke in his 80s, Douglas fought his way back, relearning how to speak just to deliver one last speech on stage. But his greatest act of defiance came during the McCarthy era. He openly gave credit to a blacklisted writer, effectively ending Hollywood's climate of fear. When he said the line, "I am Spartacus," it wasn't just a performance, it was his philosophy. And if you thought Douglas was fearless, the next man lived even harder on and off the screen. Keep watching for number 15. Number 15, Steve McQueen.
She's a done joke! Stop all! To cross a wire is that?
What wire?
This wire! The only wire! It's absolutely forbidden to cross it, you know that?
Yeah.
He escaped reform school, saved Marines from a sinking tank, and refused stunt doubles, no matter how broken his body was. Steve McQueen wasn't just a star, he was gasoline and grit. As a teenager, McQueen stole cars, fought with cops, and wound up in juvenile detention. Later, he joined the Marines, where he famously saved 5 men from drowning after their tank sank in the ocean. Hollywood knew him as a rebel. He clashed with directors, showed up drunk or high, and still delivered flawless performances. He insisted on doing his own stunts, including the legendary motorcycle jump in The Great Escape. Off-screen, McQueen raced cars and motorcycles professionally, surviving crashes that would have killed anyone else. Even when cancer came for him, he refused to go quietly, seeking experimental treatments in a desperate fight to live. McQueen once said, "I live for myself," and until the very end, that's exactly what he did. And if McQueen was Hollywood's rebel, the next man was its redemption story. Keep watching for number 14. Number 14, Danny Trejo.
Pick up that Mexican!
From San Quentin prison to Hollywood's most feared villain, Danny Trejo turned pain into power and lived to tell the tale. Trejo spent much of his youth locked up, bouncing between juvenile halls and maximum security prisons, including the infamous San Quentin. Behind bars, he became the boxing champion in both the lightweight and welterweight divisions. But Trejo's fight wasn't just in the ring. He survived overdoses, gang wars, and stabbings before turning his life around. After getting clean, he worked as a drug counselor, a job that unexpectedly led him onto a movie set, where his menacing look landed him a role on the spot. He never needed makeup, his scars were real. His gravelly voice and deadly stare came from decades of surviving the streets. Today, Trejo is still feared on screen, but off-screen he uses that same fire to inspire prisoners, addicts, and anyone struggling to fight their demons. He didn't just play tough guys, he was one. And if Trejo embodied survival, the next man embodied sheer heroism. Keep watching for number 13. Number 13, Audie Murphy. He killed over 200 enemy soldiers, earned 33 medals for valor, and then stepped in front of the camera to play himself. Audie Murphy didn't imagine heroism, he defined it. At just 17 years old, Murphy lied about his age to enlist in the army. In World War II, he single-handedly held off an entire German company for over an hour, using a burning tank destroyer's machine gun to mow down the enemy. That act earned him the Medal of Honor, the highest military award possible. By the end of the war, he was the most decorated American soldier in history, receiving every U.S. combat award for bravery, but the war never left him. He battled crippling PTSD, often sleeping with a pistol under his pillow. In Hollywood, he transitioned into acting, but never glorified violence. When he played himself into Hell and Back, he actually toned down the story, because the truth was even more brutal. Behind his soft voice was a man who had walked through real hell and somehow survived. And if Murphy showed the scars of war, the next man showed the chaos of self-destruction. Keep watching for number 12. Number 12, Oliver Reed.
My dear Aramis needs 10 to impress his latest mistress. My good Porthos needs 10 to enable himself to dress decently. And you need 10 for lodgings and a servant, I would suggest. And I...
And you?
I need a drink. You will find, young man, that the future looks rosier through the bottom of a glass.
He drank like a beast, fought like a gladiator, and terrified directors who dared to challenge him. Oliver Reed was chaos in a tailored suit. Reed's reputation was legendary. He once drank more than 100 pints in 4 days and still showed up to set swinging. During one infamous bender, he took on 5 rugby players at once and won. On screen, he was just as dangerous. In a choreographed fight scene, Reed hit his co-star so hard he knocked him out cold and refused to apologize. During an interview, he branded himself with a lit cigarette just to prove he could. Directors feared him, studios couldn't control him, and Reed wouldn't have had it any other way. And if you thought Oliver Reed was wild, the next man combined Harvard brains with cowboy brutality. Keep watching for number 11. Number 11, Tommy Lee Jones. A Harvard-educated cowboy with fists of steel and zero patience for weakness, Tommy Lee Jones hides fire beneath every glare. Jones grew up on a Texas ranch, breaking horses and working the land. Later, he earned a football scholarship to Harvard, where he once fought a teammate for mocking his size. That chip on his shoulder never left him. Number 10, Sean Connery.
I admire your courage, Miss...
Trench. Sylvia Trench. I admire your luck, Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
Before he was Bond, he was a bodybuilder, a bouncer, and a bare-knuckle street fighter. Sean Connery didn't need gadgets. His fists were enough. Born into poverty in Edinburgh, Connery polished coffins and delivered milk just to scrape by. He built his body through weightlifting and entered bodybuilding competitions, placing 3rd in Mr. Universe. But he also worked nights as a nightclub enforcer, taking on violent gangs and coming out on top. Connery's toughness wasn't an act. Once a group of thugs tried to rob him, he fought them all off by himself. On the set of Bond films, he insisted on doing his own fights, and once broke a stuntman's nose during a scene. His discipline came from martial arts training, which kept him fighting fit well into his 60s. Known for a volcanic temper, Connery never backed down on or off camera. Asked about James Bond, he famously said, "I am not James Bond, but I am a Scotsman, and that's more dangerous." And if Connery carried himself like a weapon, the next man lived with a scar that turned into his signature snarl. Keep watching for number 9. Number 9, Humphrey Bogart. That famous snarl wasn't acting. It came from a war wound that scarred him for life and turned him into Hollywood's hardest hero. Bogart enlisted in the Navy during World War I. A piece of shrapnel tore into his lip, leaving him with the lisp and crooked sneer that became his trademark. Instead of hiding it, he owned it and built an entire career on that hardened look. Off-screen, he was every bit as rough as his characters. He drank heavily, fought reporters, and protected women on set like a bulldog. Once, he told a studio head to go to hell and walked off, only to land an even bigger role. During the McCarthy blacklist, Bogart stood with blacklisted artists, risking his career when others stayed silent. Even while battling cancer, he never showed weakness, working until his body gave out. Bogart once said, "The only thing you owe the public is a good performance," and he lived by it, delivering every role with brutal honesty. And if Bogart embodied hard-boiled grit, the next man was pure lightning in human form. Keep watching for number 8. Number 8, Bruce Lee. He created his own martial art, shattered racial barriers, and moved so fast, the camera couldn't even keep up. Bruce Lee was lightning in human form. By his teens, Lee had already trained in Wing Chun, boxing, fencing, and judo, but he didn't stop there. He invented Jeet Kune Do, blending philosophy with devastating strikes. His famous 1-inch punch could launch grown men across a room, and he could do push-ups balancing on just 2 fingers. On set, his power was frighteningly real. He once broke a stuntman's ribs by accident, and directors often had to slow down the film because he moved faster than the camera could capture. Rejected by Hollywood for lead roles, Lee went to Hong Kong, where he became an international superstar. He fought tradition, prejudice, and the limits of film itself, forcing the world to see him on his own terms. Bruce Lee didn't just act like a fighter, he fought every second of his life and left a legacy that no one has matched. And if Bruce Lee was lightning, the next man was pure fire, carrying real rage into every role. Keep watching for number 7. Number 7, James Cain.
Son of a bitch.
He trained like a fighter, lived like a gangster, and carried real rage into every role. James Caan didn't just play violent men, he was one. Can earned a black belt in karate under Master Takayuki Kubota, training with the intensity of a professional fighter. For The Godfather, he lived among real mobsters to study their behavior, and it showed. His famous fight scene was so brutal that he broke his co-star's nose for real. Off-screen, Caan's temper was legendary. He once punched a paparazzi for taking pictures of his daughter. Arrested multiple times for assault, he brushed it off as setting boundaries. Directors called him unpredictable, but that's what made him electrifying. Francis Ford Coppola said Caan didn't need direction, just room to explode. His friends nicknamed him Jimmy the Shark, because when he walked onto a set, everyone knew trouble and brilliance were about to follow. And if Caan was a gangster in spirit, the next man was a real soldier who stormed the beaches of Normandy. Keep watching for number 6. Number 6, Charles Durning.
So you got news for me?
You know the news. You do good work, clean work.
So what's the situation?
He stormed Omaha Beach, fought in brutal hand-to-hand combat, and escaped a Nazi prison camp before Hollywood ever called. Charles Durning was already a warrior. Drafted into World War II, Durning was part of the first wave at D-Day. He was shot in the hip, chest, and leg, but survived. He killed enemy soldiers in close quarters and later managed to escape a German POW camp, dragging himself back to freedom. Number 5, Rod Taylor.
Why is it that we usually ignore the 4th dimension? Because we have no freedom of movement within it.
He conveys this sense of euphoric wonder at this thing that he's developed. And in the novel, the same way as in the movie, he brings out a little miniature version.
He punched a co-star unconscious, wrestled real animals on set, and once stopped a street mugging with his bare hands. Rod Taylor wasn't bluffing, he was the real deal. Born in Australia, Taylor grew up tough, training in boxing and stunt fighting before Hollywood ever discovered him. On set, he insisted on doing his own stunts, no matter how dangerous. While filming The Time Machine, he broke 3 ribs and kept working without telling anyone. Taylor didn't just act like a fighter, he was one. He once got into a real brawl with Lee Marvin and walked away the winner. During another altercation, he cold-cocked a fellow actor for insulting a crew member. Respect was non-negotiable. Even off-screen, Taylor's instincts were pure action hero. When he saw a woman being mugged on the street, he jumped in and saved her, fighting off the attacker himself. Asked once about retiring, he replied, "Why? I'm not dead yet." That was Rod Taylor, a man who lived like the roles others only pretended to play. And if Taylor lived like a soldier of fortune, the next man carried the raw fire of a Marine into every performance. Keep watching for number 4. Number 4, Gene Hackman. He lied about his age to join the Marines at 16, fought with his fist long before he fought with words, and brought a volcanic temper into Hollywood that no one could ignore. Hackman served in the Marine Corps in China, where discipline and bare-knuckle brawls hardened him into a fighter. After leaving the service, he drifted through jobs as a truck driver, doorman, and field radio operator before finally finding his way to acting. On set, Hackman's presence was explosive. He once dragged a paparazzo into traffic by the collar. In another moment of rage, he shattered a wall with his fist during a take, and the director kept it in. Co-stars feared his temper but respected his raw power. Hackman made it clear he didn't care for Hollywood charm. He once said, "I don't trust charm." What he trusted was grit, discipline, and earning respect the hard way. He wasn't polished, he wasn't gentle. Hackman was fire bottled up in a man, and when it hit the screen, it was unforgettable. And if Hackman was a volcano, the next man was a bomb that Hollywood itself couldn't contain. Keep watching for number 3. Number 3, Mickey Rourke. He broke his own face, walked away from fame, and trained like a killer when Hollywood wanted him to be a star. Mickey Rourke wasn't method, he was feral. Before the bright lights, Rourke was a boxer. He racked up broken ribs, a shattered nose, a tongue split from years in the ring. Hollywood wanted him as the next De Niro, but Rourke turned his back on it all to fight. He lived in gyms, sparred with world champions, and surrounded himself with gangsters instead of agents. When he returned years later, he was almost unrecognizable. His face was scarred by fights and botched surgeries, but his performances were rawer than ever. He took roles other actors wouldn't touch, violent, broken men who mirrored his own battles. Rourke trained under the legendary coach Freddie Roach and once said, "I lost everything, but I didn't sell out." To him, pain wasn't something to avoid, it was proof of being alive. He wasn't a comeback story, he was a warning, a man Hollywood couldn't break because he was too busy breaking himself. And if Rourke was Hollywood's wild card, the next man was its quiet executioner, surviving shark-infested waters to become a legend. Keep watching for number 2. Number 2, Clint Eastwood. He survived a plane crash, swam through shark-infested waters, and directed films with a revolver strapped to his belt. Clint Eastwood wasn't just danger on screen, he lived it. Drafted during the Korean War, Eastwood's transport plane went down in the Pacific Ocean. He swam more than 3 miles through freezing water, knowing sharks circled beneath him before finally reaching shore. That same grit defined his career. On set, Eastwood insisted on doing his own stunts, riding wild horses, enduring blistering desert heat, and pushing through exhaustion without complaint. Behind the camera, he demanded absolute control. Once, when a producer tried to change his script, Eastwood growled, "Touch it again, and I'll break your hand." Quiet, menacing, and relentless, Eastwood built a reputation on silence and steel. Off-screen, he carried loaded guns on camping trips and kept one close at home, always ready. He never blinked, never backed down, never needed a second take. Eastwood didn't chase Hollywood fame, he commanded it. And yet, even Eastwood bowed to the myth of the man who came before him, because the #1 toughest star in Hollywood history was John Wayne. Number 1, John Wayne. He filmed with a collapsed lung, rode horses with broken ribs, and outlived the very myth of American masculinity. John Wayne was the last man standing. Before Hollywood turned him into an icon, Wayne was a college football player at USC. A body surfing accident shattered his collarbone and ended his athletic career, but it didn't end his toughness. On set, he refused painkillers, powering through broken bones, long horseback rides, and grueling desert shoots. Even after losing a lung to cancer in 1964, Wayne came back stronger, carrying his 6-shooter and riding tall in the saddle. He filmed the shootist while battling stomach cancer, hiding the pain so no one would see him weaken. His co-stars said Wayne lived by his own code, blunt, uncompromising, and unshakable. His tombstone doesn't read like a Hollywood resume. It says, Feo, fuerte y formal. Ugly, strong, and dignified. That wasn't a brand, that was John Wayne. When the dust settled and Hollywood's tough guys faded, Wayne was still in the saddle. Think that was wild? Tap one of the videos on screen to keep going, like, subscribe, and watch what Hollywood doesn't want you to know.